Hi, my name is Sarah Jones, and this is the UX Research Functional Group Conversation. It looks like there might be a few people struggling to actually get into the room. I've just noticed it in the group conversation agenda. Okay, it looks like people are making their way in now. Does anyone have any questions to get me started? If there's no questions to get me started, I can talk a little bit about what we've been doing within the department. So our focus this quarter, our OKR is on building training materials for product managers and product designers. And anyone really across the organisation that would like to do some UX research. And we're doing this so people can start to self-service a little bit more on UX research, following the processes that we use within the department, and to be able to, be able to conduct things like usability testing and user interviews with users. Okay, so it looks like I've got some questions. Charlie, are you on the call? Would you like to voice your question?
Yeah, sure. This is something I was thinking about recently, and with regard to accessibility testing, has anyone tried to use GitLab with a screen reader? Does it work well? Are there improvements to be made there?
There's definitely improvements that can be made to our accessibility. It's not something that we've done within UX research. We do have within the UX department, Jeremy Elder, who's like our accessibility expert, who's been kind of focused on looking at GitLab's accessibility and starting to make some improvements in that area. One of the things he's actually doing is building a panel of users who have disabilities and who have come forward and said that they would like to help with doing testing as well. So actually, I think that's going to be better than actually someone like myself, like for example, one of the researchers actually tested, to actually have someone who's in that situation to be able to do that testing for us would be really helpful.
Thanks. And I think Sid is next.
Can you maybe, Sarah, can you maybe talk a bit to how good we are as an organization as a whole to follow up on research findings? I talked with UX designers yesterday, and we're generating a lot more issues that are being handled either by closing them as not important enough or things that need to be done. How is that for UX research specifically? How are we following up quickly enough, mostly in product, on the findings?
Yeah, I think it's changed a lot, and I think a lot of that's due to the fact that we're working a lot more closely with product and designers as well. So the kind of process that we used to go through before is that when we had a much smaller research team, we were kind of managing all the requests that came into us, and we would go and do a lot of these studies in isolation. We'd come back with some findings, and then perhaps some of those findings would sit on a shelf. What's changed is the fact that we are working more collaboratively. So we're having like product managers who are starting to take part in user interviews. They are leading those interviews with the support of researchers. And we also have product designers who are conducting solutions validation work, which is things like usability testing, design preference tests, and things like that. Again, with the support of a researcher. And I think that's making a difference. I think it's much better when a designer or a PM can hear firsthand the problems that users are facing. So I do think that a lot more of our findings are being incorporated into the products and are being acted upon.
Thanks. I got the next question too, slide 5. talks about feature flags, and I noticed Laurie is in the call. I think that with feature flags, one of the things I've seen happening in companies is that they get added and then at a certain point, they are dialed up. But then at some point, you need to remove the code. Like the feature flag has proven itself. There's no need to kind of keep that extra complexity in the code to make the feature flag work. And that's always struck me as something where the application should really help you, like identify which feature flags have been at like 100% for a long time, suggest where that code lives, and even at some point maybe offer to like make a merge request to remove that code automatically. And then now that's a 3-step process, like which ones, where does the code live, offer to fix the code. But I wonder if that's something that UX research is looking at.
That's definitely something that came out of our research. Said I talked to quite a few people who are like, please help me manage this. It is unmanageable when we have thousands of them, and then they just become part of the code, like you said. So one of the findings was that we really need to look into ways to help them manage. And some of the things that we discovered were, how long has it been used? And how frequently is it being used? How frequently is it being accessed? So not just that maybe it's been out there for a month or a year, but how many people are accessing it and how frequently. So they can make that decision internally that that needs to be a merge request, make it a feature, stop it with the feature flags, and then they can manage their code properly. And they do want help doing that. They want some automation around that. They can't do it manually. It's just too much to handle. So you're spot on, and that definitely came out of the research.
And are there issues for that where we're looking at that, or are there, and what is, do you by any chance know what the competition there is? Like, are people, I think people are starting to like show flags that are unused. I think the best in class application are identifying the code with those flags. I've not seen anybody who can automatically generate the code to remove the feature flag. What's your take on the industry?
We talked to a couple people who are using LaunchDarkly and Heroku, and neither of those mentioned any help that they were getting with feature flags at all. So definitely is not a thing yet, but definitely is something that they need help with. And Orit's, our product manager, has been out at a conference, so I'm not sure where she's going to take the issues, but there has been research issues raised for this particular piece that she has reviewed. I've gone through them with her and the design team, so she knows that it's there. I'm just not sure where she's planning on taking it yet.
Cool. And if you could add the issue at some point to the doc and maybe Slack me, that'd be awesome.
Yep, will do.
Thanks.
Alpo, would you like to voice your question?
I have the next question, I think. Do we have any work like UX research for GitLab usage on mobile smartphones? Recently, I've been using GitLab issues a lot on my mobile browser, so I was curious of any work being done. Also, I had a data team made this Periscope chart, which I linked, and I see like 4% in winter and 8% in summer usage for mobile phone on gitlab.com. But on the sign-in page, it's more like 40% or so people try to sign in on mobile smartphones. That may or may not mean something, like any plans, ideas, research.
Yeah, sure. So I can see that Catherine started typing an answer to this, and she's our system usability survey expert, and she has done some questions around tablet and mobile usage. So Catherine, would you like to voice your comments?
Sure. So to put it in the short way, there's no current work, but I just wanted to highlight that there's a new issue where designers are discussing creating guidelines for how GitLab should scale on different screen sizes. And from our previous system usability scale survey, we got some insight on the current usage versus what people are looking to use mobile for. And so what our current thinking around that is usage is lower, but that's perhaps because it's not optimized for the workflows that people are trying to carry out on mobile. So that is something we'd like to put more attention to. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me or create a research issue about it, because it'd be interesting to learn kind of about your workflow in particular.
Next question is just related. Maybe it's not to you. Just like, do we need smartphone applications for GitLab or not? Have you ever heard something about it? Because, I mean, it's fine on the browser. I can use it, but like generally, from a UX perspective, does it make sense to have the application version?
Yeah, so I've definitely heard about it, and there are two issues that I'll link there. And I'd say we've heard about it, but it's a question of priority. And I think that's a decision that's probably wider than the UX team, which would bring in product and more leadership as well. But I think it's an interesting idea. I personally would have interest in checking my issues or looking at merge requests and such on my phone. So I would really be interested in it, but it's not something we've done a coordinated research study about. I don't believe that.
Yeah, as a starter point, let me tell that I am retrying failed CI jobs on my smartphone because, you know, sometimes it's some flaky test, and writing some comments on the issues works fine. And you know, that's all.
Okay, so what I want to do is I'll follow up with you, and we should have a call about mobile, because it sounds like you have ideas and potentially feedback on the experience. So that'd be good.
Great, thanks.
I don't see any other questions. I'd be happy to weigh in on mobile if that's helpful.
Sure, go ahead, Sid.
So, a few things. First of all, there's the potential of mobile slowing down development. Like, we cannot release that feature until our mobile app deploys it, supports it. So that's something we should never do. We should never jeopardize our velocity. Second, there's a lot of enthusiasts making mobile apps for GitLab, and that's a potential way to do something with a relatively low investment. Take someone who's built a great mobile app for GitLab in their spare time and pay them to work on that full time. I'm very supportive of something like that. Mobile is the future, like iPad, things like that should be supported. The fact that our web IDE doesn't work well on the iPad, I think is a big detriment to our future strategy. For mobile apps, they tend to work better if you have a SaaS application, because then it's easier to like set up the push messages and everything else. We have 90% of our users are on self-managed instances, and it's harder to kind of make those things work well. So it's paramount that we make sure that our progressive web app or like our regular application scales well to mobile screens. That should be our first and foremost focus. And the last, maybe a bit of a note, I thought it was a question of time before we were forced to make a mobile app. And I've been amazed that so far we've never lost a deal because of it. It doesn't come up with customers like you should have a mobile app. That doesn't mean it's not needed, but just the amount of time that it comes up have been surprisingly low. And I can't believe that we're in 2019, so in 2020, and we still don't have a mobile app, and we seem to kind of get away with it. Now, getting away with it doesn't mean it's the right decision, but it's been very surprising to me.
Would it make sense to just narrow down mobile, let's say, a web browser focus or even application, just to the issue management or some things which people do on mobile phones? So that like Jira, I think, has it for, if I'm not mistaken, for users, and that will enable maybe a new kind of usage. I'm not talking for all the stages, just for particularly issue comments and some user actions around it, things they can do on when they are mobile.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure who you asked, but I think that makes a lot of sense. By the way, Sri, you're unmuted.
It wasn't me who asked this question.
No, your mic is open, so we could hear you type.
Oh yeah, I just added one meta question to the document. If the previous question is over, I can verbalize my question now. Is it?
Go ahead.
All right, super. So just a question about how the UX research works and how do the findings become roadmap items? And a follow-up question would be, what is or where should customer-facing GitLabbers best contribute? So the reason this question popped into my head was the mobile discussion we just had. And I remember like a sales colleague of mine last week sharing some findings about a customer who has been a customer for about a year, not a large customer, maybe about 100 premiums, but they did bring up this point about not having a mobile app now that GitHub has one. So that's the background. And the question is, how can we best contribute and how do these findings become roadmap items?
Sure, so I'll take the first half of that question first. So the research findings, what tends to happen is we go through like a stage. We start with problem validation, and that's where we come together as a team, that's designer, researcher, and product manager, and we discuss like a problem space, and we might delve into that more with customer interviews. So we take the findings from that, and then we move into solution validation stage, which is where the designers go away and they perhaps come up with a prototype that we want to test to see if it works with users. And then following on from that, then we know whether we should carry on into the build stage, whether the thing that we've tested is the thing that our users want. So they don't really kind of stand alone on their own as such. They're kind of just built into the product development roadmap. And then the second half of that question, how can you help? We have something called GitLab First Look, which is our research panel. You can visit it by going to CXR. I think that's right. Emily's on the code.gitlab.com. We've got a shortened URL for it. And basically, if you ask customers to sign up to that, they can take part in any of the research studies that we do. That's normally our first point of recruitment. And for taking part in studies as well, we do compensate. We give away things like GitLab swag, Amazon gift cards and things like that as well. And we're always kind of doing research. So it wouldn't be very long until they received a research invite from one of the researchers on the team.
Right, thanks. And just another follow-up to my follow-up. In case, let's say during the sales cycle, I learned that a prospect, let's say, for example, one of my past prospects found the project management side of GitLab not very visually appealing compared to some of the other tools out there. Should I be contributing my feedback to the UX research group, or should I be going to the product owners and the product managers of that part of GitLab? What is the best way for me to put that feedback in?
Yeah, sure. You can definitely reach out to a researcher. So each of the researchers are kind of over a section of the product. So if it was to do with project management, that researcher would be Catherine at the moment. Hopefully we're going to increase the research headcount next year. So researchers will have a smaller scope, but you should be able to reach out to a researcher and they will always pass that information on to the product managers as well. But yeah, researchers is absolutely fine as first port of call.
Right, thanks.
The other thing that you might find interesting, if you want to kind of look at the research that we have in process, we have the UX Research Project, which is where we open all our issues and we start tracking the work that we're kind of doing. And then we also have the Insights repository, which is where we put all our findings into as well. So again, if you think your customer is having problems, if you go into the Insights repository, you probably find that there's other kind of problems in there as well, which again is great. The more people that kind of have the similar problem, the more likely it is that we do something about it as well.
Yeah, for sure. Just to clarify, I speak to prospects more than customers. So it could be that my feedback or the feedback that I hear from the prospect is not worth much. So maybe you should not act on it. But I just want to make sure I have somebody to share it with and they can validate whether it's actually valid or not.
Yeah, and prospect feedback is really good to us as well. We do a lot of testing with non-GitLab users as well, especially because obviously they come from other tools and they come to work on GitLab, and it could be very different from the experience that they've had before. So we need to work out like where those gaps are and where we can improve the experience for them.
Yeah, thanks. And the process, like, would it be just go to your Slack group and put a message there? Or is it a proper project on GitLab where I make an issue?
Yeah, I think the best project to put it in is the UX research project. I will put that into the document. Oh, Catherine's already beaten me to it. That use that link in the document and open an issue there. We have a research request template. Just put your kind of ideas into that, and then the relevant researcher will pick it up.
Perfect. Thanks.
Last call for final questions. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.